Number 1. One reason for the importance of the Federalist Papers in the United States history is that these writings A. outlined plans for the geographic expansion of the United States, B. presented the first legal arguments in favor of retaining slavery, C. convinced the colonists to rebel against Great Britain, or D. helped persuade some states to ratify the United States Constitution. Number 2. President George Washington's response to the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794 and President Dwight Eisenhower's response to the events at Little Rock High School in 1957 show that the A. states have been successful in defying the federal law, B. Supreme Court has often declared presidential actions unconstitutional, C. Presidents may use troops to enforce federal decisions, or D. Federal Supremacy Clause of the Constitution is rarely enforced. Number 3. The decision of President George Washington to use the state militia to put down the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794 demonstrated that the A. federal government had no authority to impose excess tax, B. president was becoming a military dictator, C. states were still the dominant power in the new nation, or D. new national government intended to enforce federal laws. Number 4. Which action during Washington's administration led to the Whiskey Rebellion in western Pennsylvania? A. Creation of the Bank of the United States, B. Passage of the new excess tax, C. Establishment of presidential cabinet, or D. Ban on slavery in the Northwest Territory. Number 5. During George Washington's presidency, the authority of the federal government was strengthened by the A. formation of a military alliance with England, B. establishment of national language, C. elimination of political parties, or D. suppression of the Whiskey Rebellion. Number 6. In his farewell address, President George Washington warned against establishing alliances with European countries because he was concerned primarily about A. United States involvement in foreign wars, B. French colonization of the Caribbean, C. protection of the western frontier, or D. restrictions on trade with Latin America. Number 7. Which foreign policy toward Europe did President George Washington recommend in his farewell address? A. Imperialism, B. Internationalism, C. Military alliance, or D. Neutrality. Number 8. Building support for the ratification of the United States Constitution was the purpose of the A. Mayflower Compact, B. Farewell Address of George Washington, C. Albany Plan of Union, or D. Federalist Paper. Number 9. Which of the following developments during President Washington's term of office contributed most directly to the main idea of this portion of the farewell address? A. Results of the Whiskey Rebellion in response to the imposition of excess tax on whiskey. B. Treaties negotiated between the United States and Great Britain and the United States and Spain. C. Political disagreements between Alexander Hamilton's Federalists and Thomas Jefferson's Democratic Republicans. Or D. Renewed conflict between Great Britain and France following the French Revolution. Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the destructive efforts of the spirit of party generally. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge natural to party dissension, is itself a frightful disposition. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and response in absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. It serves always to distrust the public councils and weaken the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-rounded jealousness and false alarms, kindles animosity of one part against another, provokes occasionally riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which find a easy access to government itself through the channels of party passion. Source: Farewell Address, President George Washington. Which of the following developments during President Washington's term of office contributed most directly to the main idea of this portion of his farewell address? A. Results of the Whiskey Rebellion in response to the imposition of an excess tax on whiskey. B. Treaties negotiated between the United States and Great Britain and the United States and Spain. C. Political disagreements between Alexander Hamilton's Federalists and Thomas Jefferson's Democratic Republicans. Or D. Renewed conflict between Great Britain and France following the French Revolution. Number 10. President George Washington pursued a foreign policy of neutrality during his administration, primarily because he believed that A. The United States needed time to gain economic and military strength. B. Alliances should be established with both France and England. C. Treaties were prohibited by the Constitution. Or D. The United States should not expand by force. Number 11. Actions and policies of the government under President George Washington generally resulted in the A. Strengthening of the federal government. B. Liberation of many enslaved persons. C. Failure to create a sound financial program for the country. Or D. Establishment of strong political ties with other nations. Number 12. What were two key precedents established by George Washington during his presidency? A. Universal male suffrage and support for political parties. B. Protective tariffs and foreign alliances during peacetime. C. Aid to farmers and the end of the slave trade. Or D. Foreign policy of neutrality and the use of presidential advisors. Number 13. How did President George Washington set a precedent for all future presidents? A. Appointing a career soldier to be Secretary of War. B. Campaigning actively for the office. C. Creating a cabinet of advisors. Or D. Choosing a friend to be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Number 14. According to this document, the United States foreign policy let's start again. According to this document, what United States foreign policy did President George Washington favor? The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is, in extending our commercial relations, to have with them a little political connection as possible. So far as we have already formed engagements, let them be fulfilled with perfect good faith. Here let us stop. Our detached and disdained situation invites and enables us to pursue a different course. Why? By interweaving our destiny with that of any part of Europe, entangle our peace and prosperity in toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or whim. It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world. George Washington's Farewell Address, 1796. According to this document, what United States foreign policy did President George Washington favor? Number 15. According to this document, what does Washington warn against in his farewell address? No alliances, however strict between the parts, can be adequate substitute. They must inevitably experience the infractions and interruptions which all alliances in all time have experienced, and just and amicable feelings towards all. So, likewise, a passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils, that it is folly in one nation to look for disinterested favors from another, that it must pay with a portion of its independence for whatever it may accept under that character. Washington's Farewell Address, 1796. According to the document, what does Washington warn against in the Farewell Address?